Imagine a baby born way, way too early to survive comfortably out here in the real world. Lungs that just aren't ready for air, incredibly fragile skin, organs still putting themselves together. Right now, in today's neonatal intensive care units, keeping that tiny baby alive means using harsh ventilators, feeding tubes, and constant stressful medical intervention. But I want you to imagine a radically different way to save an extremely premature baby. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to dive right into the fascinating, rapidly approaching future of artificial wombs, intelligent embryo monitoring, and AI-assisted reproduction.
Okay, this concept completely flips our current medical approach on its head. Instead of forcing those immature lungs to immediately gasp for air, imagine placing that baby inside a sterile, fluid-filled chamber. The umbilical cord stays connected, but to an artificial placenta, so oxygen and nutrients just keep flowing right into the bloodstream, exactly like they would inside the uterus. It's this futuristic, womb-like system designed not to replace human pregnancy, but to bridge a critical, life-saving gap.
Section 1. Myth versus medical reality. Separating science fiction from science fact. Let's dive right into this, because whenever we talk about artificial wombs, people's imaginations tend to run wild, right? So we really need to separate the highly sensationalized sci-fi from actual grounded science fact. The absolute core term we need to understand here is ectogenesis. That simply means the development of a human being outside a biological body. It's a broad term, sure, but defining it clearly up front grounds us in the actual science so we don't get totally lost in the hype when exploring the complex medical realities.
Look, there's a massive difference between what's real and what you see in the movies. Right now, science is entirely focused on partial ectogenesis. That's the near-term goal of supporting an extremely premature baby, say at 22 or 23 weeks, for a limited chunk of time. It is absolutely not complete ectogenesis. Scientists aren't out there placing a newly fertilized egg inside a machine and growing a human from scratch. The focus is strictly on saving fragile lives that are already pretty far along in their development.
Section 2. Saving the extremely premature. The race to protect development outside the uterus. So why is this specific technology so desperately needed in the first place? Well, we have to look at the unique dangers of being born extremely early, especially when it comes to the lungs. See, a baby born that early lacks surfactant. That's the crucial substance that keeps the tiny air sacs in our lungs open. Forcing air into those fragile lungs can cause severe damage. So to bypass the lungs entirely, an artificial placenta uses a delicate pumpless circuit. It actually relies entirely on the fetus's own heartbeat to pump blood through an oxygenator and back again. There's no mechanical pump involved here because that kind of high pressure would easily damage a premature baby's incredibly fragile heart. And that brings us to a huge landmark moment in this research, the famous premature lamb experiment. Researchers successfully proved that an extremely premature mammalian fetus could actually be maintained in a womb-like extracorporeal environment for up to 4 weeks. And during that time, they kept growing and developing. It's amazing. But I want to be super clear here. While this brilliantly illustrates that the concept is biologically plausible in mammals, it absolutely does not prove it safe for human infants just yet. Translating this to humans is vastly more difficult. Section 3, AI in the IVF lab and the womb. The brains behind the artificial environment. Because building a physical chamber is really only half the battle. Managing an environment this delicate would be mathematically impossible for human doctors to do alone without a highly advanced artificial intelligence acting as the monitoring layer. Just think about the sheer volume of continuous physiological data you need to sustain life. We're talking heart rate, oxygen levels, blood flow, fluid composition. It's this massive, endless stream of numbers. No human clinician can track all of that simultaneously 24/7, but an AI system, absolutely. The AI solution here detects those incredibly complex, subtle patterns. A tiny change in blood flow, mixed with a slight shift in heart rate, might flag an infection hours or even days before it becomes obvious to a doctor. The AI basically acts as the ultimate guardian. And hey, AI isn't just some far-off concept for artificial wombs. It's already quietly revolutionizing modern IVF right now. I mean, we're already using AI for time-lapse embryo monitoring. Algorithms are actively helping specialists score which embryos have the highest probability of implanting. Machine learning is crafting personalized hormone stimulation plans. Researchers are even creating digital twins of placentas to predict pregnancy complications early on. Reproduction is quickly becoming a highly measurable, technologically assisted process. Section 4, the ethical minefield, how technology challenges our definitions of life and law. Let's move into how all of this builds into an incredibly complex web of profound societal, legal, and ethical shockwaves. Because at the end of the day, reproduction isn't just an engineering problem. Every technical leap carries heavy moral weight. Take this question. Is the developing human a fetus or a newborn? It sounds simple, but it literally breaks our entire current legal framework. A fetus exists inside a pregnant body. A newborn exists outside of it. But what is the legal and biological status of a developing human transferred directly from a uterus into a machine? Some researchers are proposing the term gestateling to describe this strange intermediate status. They aren't gestating inside a person anymore, but they haven't completed the biological transition of birth, like taking that first breath of air. And that intermediate status forces us to neutrally examine some incredibly tense legal questions around bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. In a lot of jurisdictions, abortion law hinges entirely on the concept of viability, basically whether a fetus could survive outside the uterus. So if a machine suddenly lowers that viability threshold, does the law change? Could someone be legally pressured or even mandated to surgically transfer a fetus to an artificial womb instead of terminating the pregnancy? These are massive, massive questions that our legal systems are just wholly unprepared for right now. Then there's the data. Think about the massive data privacy implications here. If an embryo is evaluated by AI, grown in an artificial womb, and monitored every single second for weeks, that child enters the world with a permanent algorithmic profile, a profile that could contain genetic predictions, disease risks, and incredibly detailed developmental data. So who owns that? Is it the parents, the hospital, the AI company? Could an employer or health insurance company one day request the digital profile you generated before you even took your first breath? It's wild to think about. Philosophically, society's totally split on what this technology actually represents. One side views artificial gestation as ultimate liberation, a way to finally free women from the physical risks and burdens of pregnancy, creating true reproductive equality. But the other side views it as ultimate control. Will employers pressure women to use artificial wombs just to avoid maternity leave? Will insurance companies mandate it because a machine is easier to monitor than a human body? It's a fierce debate over whether this tech actually expands human choice or just shifts control over to corporations and hospitals. Section 5. The future of birth. Looking ahead to the 2040s and beyond. So when we bring all these scientific, medical, and ethical concepts together, what does a highly specialized neonatal facility actually look like a couple of decades from now? Let's paint a vivid picture of a plausible near-future medical success story. It's the 2040s. A patient facing a life-threatening pregnancy complication at 23 weeks undergoes a carefully planned transfer. The fetus goes into a sterile fluid chamber. A digital twin models its growth. And for 8 weeks, an AI system manages the environment perfectly, allowing the fragile lungs and brain to mature safely in fluid. Then, and only then, they begin a gradual, safe transition to breathing air. AI and partial ectogenesis acting as the perfect bridge to life. The absolutely crucial point to remember here is the number one, the very first human being supported inside this kind of system. Because the moment that first patient successfully transitions through an artificial womb, it's going to represent so much more than just a medical milestone. It will mark the exact moment in human history when gestation officially becomes partly biological, partly digital, and partly engineered. This technology is coming. The engineering is being mapped out, and AI is already learning in IVF labs today. The question really isn't whether we can build an artificial womb. The question is, what kind of reproductive future should that technology create? Because an artificial womb might be able to replicate the physical functions of a biological uterus, but it cannot automatically reproduce ethics, consent, equality, or care. That part, that's entirely up to us. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the future we're building today.